Welcome to Scouching's first installment of the video room, and what we're going to do today is take a look at Axel Sandin-Pellikka, Detroit Red Wings first round draft pick from a couple of years ago. He is off to an absolutely blazing start in the Swedish Hockey League this season at around a point a game, scoring quite a bit, and a lot of people are quite excited about him. So we're going to take a look at a game that he played on November the 2nd against Leksand, and what we're going to do is look through it, look at some highlights, maybe some areas of improvement, and see really what the fuss is all about with Axel Sandin-Pellikka. I am a fan of this player, so going into this, I am actually very curious to see how this goes. So let's dig into this and see what we've got. Here's the first thing that I am noticing in terms of off-the-puck defense. In my world, I look at players like Sandin-Pellikka, and the point production is great. It's a bonus, but this is a defenseman we're talking about, and he is a little bit small, and so we do have to keep that in mind. If you can't really defend in the NHL, you're probably not going to be there super long unless you are truly an elite offensive defenseman, which in Axel Sandin-Pellikka's case we'll see. But on this defensive rush, he's going to track, I think, decently well. He's positioning himself well to block the passing lanes here. So he is at least in range of covering this option here in transition. This is kind of where you want him to be. To me, what will happen in the NHL here is players will just exploit this space on a player who can't quite cover this gap laterally. And the thing that Sandin-Pellikka is doing that is fine is scooting over to this side, trying to skate forwards rather than backwards and pushing pressure to the outside, which he does decently well here. It's just a matter of closing that gap, actually being more of a physical threat, because this is just an easy entry for the opponent. And in the NHL, once you get a cycle established, it's a lot more difficult to shut it down, obviously, because you're running around in your own end. So this is about the third time I think I've seen Sandin-Pellikka do something like this in the game. So he's going to receive the puck here. He's got tons and tons of space, and you can see him sort of taking a look around the ice and thinking a little head fake to deceive the forechecker here. The thing that I think might be a bit of an issue is that the pace at which all of this is happening and the quickness that he's able to generate doesn't give me a tremendous amount of confidence that right now he's going to project to be a massive puck carrying or puck transporting defenseman in the NHL as he is. But that's just a little thing I've noticed. But on the plus side, thinking like this is something that high level offensive defensemen need to do, especially if they're not elite skaters. Is just thinking outside the box a little bit, going around the back, keeping the puck in safe areas and able to keep possession and move the puck up the ice, even if it's not him doing it. So on this shift, you see some defensemen, especially ones that generate a lot of points, just being guys that are volume shooters. And I remember from Sandin-Pellikka's draft year that there was a lot of shooting going on, but I think to project as a really high-end offensive defenseman in the NHL, there needs to be a little bit more diversity in their offensive game. Earlier in this shift, Sandin-Pellikka switched out with another forward and went to the net on an offensive zone pinch, which is more of the kind of thing that you need to see, or at least many offensive defensemen will at least try to do in the NHL here and there. But I mean, here's an example of a guy who he's putting it on net, which I get when you put pucks on net, there can be chaos, but at 5-on-5 especially, like there are other options here, and I have seen him be a little bit more creative with the vision that he has and the creativity with the puck on his stick here. What I'm kind of seeing here is an option with a ton of open space right here, and a player streaking into that open space, and Pellikka will not send it into this space. He'll just put it right on net like that, which is fine. You know, and it gets a potential tip from this dude right here, a potential scoring option, but a shoulder check here and there, thinking about other options on the fly, to me is a little more ideal, and we'll see how the rest of the game goes. But if that's a tendency of his to just shoot, it makes his offensive projection a little bit more questionable in my view. This is another defensive zone entry. I believe this is just the second one, and we highlighted the other one where he's directly involved. And so, again, you see a gap here, right? So this guy has an option to dump the puck, and another player down here has the option to chase after it. And Sandin-Pellikka just isn't going to close this gap here. He'll give a little bit too much space to the player with the puck here. Granted, he does attempt a stick check here. This is a play that might have gone his way, and he kind of could chip it out into the neutral zone from here, and the puck's going the other way. But to me, I mean, this is a play where, yeah, he's not quite getting bailed out here by his teammate, and I mean, this is just not an ideal position, but this could have been a bit of a mess. And it's, again, like we see this a lot with players, is like little tiny interactions can make a huge difference, or a lack of an interaction can make a huge difference. Pellikka, with sort of better lateral mobility and a bit of more explosive lateral skill, or lateral skating ability, I should say, probably closes this a little bit easier and positions himself more closer to the boards and gives this guy a harder decision to make rather than just going straight that way or deciding to sort of maybe cut inside on him. But we'll see how the rest of the game goes. Again, hockey's a game of a collection of things happening, and on both of these defensive entries with Sandin-Pellikka, they managed to maintain possession and establish some kind of play. So this is a little bit better. I mean, if you're a smaller guy like Sandin-Pellikka, in this situation, I think he does a decent job. Again, there's just a bit of a lack of that really true high-end skating ability to cut this puck off as it gets to the boards here. But what he does do here, which I think you absolutely have to do, is establishing body positioning. He's putting himself between this player and the puck. It just makes his life way easier in terms of making a play and making sure that they can't establish positioning here. He gets bailed out by 52 here along the boards, and Lexan does struggle to generate possession here in the defensive zone. And again, Sandin-Pellikka sticks to his guy and just immediately is challenging him. He's not leveling him. He's not throwing him into the boards, but he's making enough of a play here where they don't get the chance to make something happen, and now they can turn around and go the other way. Right here on this defensive entry, Sandin-Pellikka does have to cut across the entire ice surface. He was around here. He's got to cut this way, which is not easy to do, and he's playing on his offside now. Thinking again about the NHL, this is not an advantageous position to be in defensively. I mean, if you're going to be maybe a top pair defenseman playing an offensive role for the Detroit Red Wings one day, and you're up against a Mitch Marner, a Tim Stützle, or something like that, I mean, this is just a pathway to the net. You've got a guy here who also could make something happen this way. It's just not the best position for him to be in here. Again, maybe I'm nitpicking, but this could have been a scoring play. They do manage to get a pass into the slot that gets blocked by this player here. So this puck is going this way, and Pellikka's not out of the play here, but you got to project to the NHL. I mean, the SHL is quite a good level of competition, but the NHL is a totally different level, and there's been more questionable defense from Sandin-Pellikka in this game than really, really solid and dependable and projectable defensive play. These are question marks that I think are still kind of there from what I remember when he was a draft eligible. This isn't something that really backfires on him, but in terms of a collection of potential issues here, it seems to me in this game from watching him, there's a lack of quickness. And an undersized defenseman, you gotta be, in my opinion, in the NHL, like an elite, mobile and fast and quick skater to close gaps and fetch loose pucks and be able to move the puck quickly. And here, I mean, it just seems like in this foot race, if this wasn't icing, I'm not sure Sandin-Pellikka is going to win this one. That probably isn't a penalty, but if you're losing the race and you put your stick out or your arms out, you don't want to be taking penalties. This might just be a one-off play, but it is highlighting a bit of a lack of quickness that I'm seeing in Sandin-Pellikka at the professional level. So this is an interesting, I mean, it's not much of a play, but it is an interesting thing to note. It's the second time in the offensive zone that you see Sandin-Pellikka being really aggressive. So he does read this well and easily wins this race to a loose puck and just keeps cycling it along down low in the corners, which you definitely want. And this is really nice open space for him. I mean, you've got this player sort of taking his momentum behind the net. This guy's not much of a factor. This guy might be a bit of a threat if he collapses a little deeper, but there's room for Sandin-Pellikka to do a thing here, and he kind of gets in that, but the referee gets in the way. So you've got a guy who's willing to pinch up in the offensive zone and try to get himself into scoring areas and maybe chip in that way, and I think that's why he might have a comparable amount of goals and assists this year rather than being more of an assist machine. When I see situations like this, just curious about how this will work in the NHL, because again, you don't see a guy who is pushing the pace of the game a tremendous amount, but you see a guy who sees the ice and is looking around a lot. You know, this guy 24 is doing a really good job drawing pressure out of the defensive zone into the neutral zone this way, which has opened up a ton of space to hit this other forward 96 trailing up the left wing. So that's fine and dandy to me. Obviously doesn't connect on the pass, but being able to recognize that option, that's kind of it seems like his brand is more pass first, seeing the ice really well, and moving the puck up the ice with his passing. Again, I think the NHL will be a stronger test, but you at least see a guy who is willing to cover the front of the net, don't want to let this guy into this open space. That's Sandin-Pellikka's job at this moment in time. So, he's not the most intense guy. He's not the most physical guy, and he's not, a bruiser here, but he does prevent that player from getting into a really dangerous zone of influence or scoring area. And again, maybe this is a 50-50 play, but Sandin-Pellikka's stick is oriented this way, and this guy just knows that there's a lane here and tries to get the puck in there, and they do end up with a scoring chance here. It's little things, but there have been a few plays here where maybe it's a 50-50 or whatever, but it hasn't really gone Sandin-Pellikka's way, and it's these little things defensively, just being a little bit of a step behind, or the stick being in a place where it's not going to really affect the play. This is another example of where Sandin-Pellikka's lack of quickness may get exposed. And the puck is not really that far from him in this situation, and you probably want to be gaining possession of this and taking it this way and seeing your options there and moving quickly. You're going to need to move quickly and move the puck quickly, but the puck seems to be outracing him here, and 19 manages to find his way down low, make an issue here for Sandin-Pellikka, and manages to maintain possession. It's another example of where I think there might be a key issue long-term with Sandin-Pellikka, or at least an issue that I've seen for years with him that might take some time to get out of his game, or at least improve. And it's just that quickness. It's those loose puck retrievals, those little tiny moments where if he's a step behind, it's hard for him to close that step. So this is defensively another interesting play where Axel Sandin-Pellikka, to me, plays good defense by being a little bit more offensive and aggressive. It's a quick cut here to just immediately change the angle at which he's skating and get this loose puck that's not given the most amount of mustard behind the pass here. Closes that really quickly, makes a quick decision just to get the puck into the offensive zone and get the puck to a forward, and they get a shot on goal from that. So when he's active and aggressive, it can make a big positive difference, and in that instance it did. On this play here, you have a guy whose head is kind of looking all over the place here. So if you're not an elite level, quick skater kind of defenseman breaking the puck out, you're going to need to be a little bit unpredictable. And here, he's got options to play around with. He could play it safe, doing these kinds of things, and he could just obviously put it off the boards here. But by being a little bit deceptive here and moving his head around, like here, he's looking at this guy, sure, he manages to get the puck out of his own end with no pressure from this player who had a few different options to cover. So Sandin-Pellikka earns himself an offensive zone entry. It's uncontrolled, but he earns one from that sort of, I might not be the fastest guy on the ice, but you probably won't be able to know exactly what I'm thinking type of play. This is another example of what I'm kind of talking about. This should be a play where Sandin-Pellikka is able to go around the back of the net or get this puck and rim it back this way if there's defensive zone support, which there is. There's an option here to at least try to maintain possession, and I get the idea here of him retrieving this puck, taking it this way. This guy, number 7, I think, is chasing him down low below the goal line. So he does have runway here, but you gotta use the runway. You gotta get up the ice here, and he doesn't really escape the pressure from this guy who just muscles him off the puck. And this is gonna be a thing that happens in the NHL. You're gonna have forecheckers who are big and fast and relentless, and they're gonna try to pin you in your own end. Those types of things are gonna be something that will happen in the NHL, and you gotta break the puck out with speed and intensity and quickness, and that's something that's popped up here and there in this game with him. So this resulted in a goal against. If you are a defender, this puck shouldn't get through, right? They've got double coverage on this guy, and ideally coverage on this guy. So I don't know how much you can really put on the shoulders of Sandin-Pellikka, but every inch matters in hockey. Every little bit of space that you offer up to your opponent, good players will take advantage of it, and Sandin-Pellikka's feet stop moving. He's just kind of gliding backwards with his stick out. No real change of direction to challenge that entry, especially with support coming back with him, and they get scored on. That's a really great play offensive zone-wise for a defenseman. He's being aggressive, he's going down low, he has the support, and puts a puck in front for a potential scoring chance. And for defensemen who are capable of doing that, they're very valuable. And we saw this earlier in the neutral zone when he cut off an offensive exit. Pellikka does have quick cuts, and for an offensive defenseman, when you're dragging pressure around in the offensive zone, it can make all the difference if you can quickly change direction like this and cross up a defenseman, create a little bit more space for yourself here. You know, you have a bit of a shooting lane. If there's someone sort of down here, you have a passing option here, but there's lots of empty space to play with. And it's a lot more space to play with than if he kept skating this way and tried to make a play this way. It unlocks a lot of options when you have footwork, even if it's not the fastest player on the ice. When you have footwork like this in the offensive zone, it opens a lot of doors for defensemen. Here, I'm not going to fault that. You have a player who is trying to be unpredictable here. A couple of frames before this, his face and head is pointed this way, but then he quickly changes his mind and tries to hit this guy in stride, and sometimes defensemen ice the puck with the right idea or showcasing good things going on. And stuff like this, for Sandin-Pellikka being a little more unpredictable and using your head and your body to juggle options, I think is going to be very, very important for him down the road. Again, you see what you need to see out of a defenseman in the defensive end with Sandin-Pellikka. We talked a little bit about the rush defense with him and some of the issues when the game is ratcheted up in terms of speed. But when the puck is in the defensive end, you have a guy who is entirely focused on this player right here in front and tying up his stick, not really making him much of an option for this player to get the puck to, just making his life more difficult, tying up his stick. And in reality, a lot of the time, that's all you really need to do. I liked this quick decision on the defensive zone exit here, quickly recognized his option. He knew there was pressure coming from behind him and just made a quick play to move the puck up the ice. On the defensive entry here, this is defended a little bit better, winning the loose puck race to get here and at least make some kind of play. Again, establishing good body positioning here, getting himself between the puck and this forechecker here. And in the NHL, I think it remains to be seen if he'll be able to have the time and space to make a turn and give himself a little tiny pocket here to work with. Getting the puck off the boards to the support more off the boards is the right idea here with all of these guys going on here. Obviously doesn't complete the pass, but it's the right idea, and the chaos ensues and results in a loss of possession for Lexan. So that is not ideal from Sandin-Pellikka. He's kind of overcommitted to the middle of the ice here and kind of gets exposed and crossed up by just taking a step too far in this direction, which leaves a gap here that can be exploited. And it does. Kind of gets left behind here, and now they have a miniature little 2-on-1 here with plenty of open space to work with. They get themselves a scoring chance from the trailing forward. So it's another defensive entry where Lexand established possession or got themselves a scoring chance, where Sandin-Pellikka just wasn't enough of an influence on that entry. So again, in the offensive zone, especially nowadays in the NHL, there seems to be a lot of focus on drawing pressure. I think this is a really good example of that, and Sandin-Pellikka is a good skater in terms of footwork when the puck is in the offensive zone, and him taking the puck this way drags these types of defenders this way, opening up a ton of space here. You may find yourself having a passing lane, which could lead to a good scoring chance in front. Obviously, that's not what happens here, as number 11 just puts one on net from the middle of nowhere. These are the things that you're going to need to see, and it's a good idea. It's a good sort of skill to have. Drawing pressure, opening space, playing the puck into that space, and extending possession in the offensive zone. Again, this is a great offensive zone play from Sandin-Pellikka. May not be the quickest guy in the world, but there's good footwork. There's good fundamentals here. He has options with this player coming at him. He's got space, he's got time to make a move or make some kind of play here. And that's exactly what he does. He's going to fake to this side and then cut this way and manage to get a puck into scoring areas. And so you're going to need to see things like that out of him for sure. Here on the offensive exit, he's just a step behind actually really influencing this, loses the stick check, and now Lexand has a 2-on-1 coming the other way. So it pays to be aggressive, and it can also pay to be aggressive. So here, Sandin-Pellikka jumps into the rush, which a lot of offensive defensemen do, makes a quick move around the 1-4 checker and puts the puck into scoring areas. You can see how a player like this can generate offense at this level. Here's another offensive zone pinch from Sandin-Pellikka. He just wins that loose puck race against number 17 here, keeps the puck hemmed in the offensive zone. Good support from his line mate at the right side of the ice up here. So he can kind of get away with a bit more aggressive play here, steps back into where he's supposed to be, is there on the back check for the rush coming the other way. This is simultaneously a very interesting series of moves from him that are quite projectable, as again, this deceptive, can't really pick up what I'm doing in the first place type of thing. Just really nice pivots, really nice changes of direction, quite unpredictable. He obviously has an easy pass option here to move the puck, but just tosses it. That could have been an offensive entry here if this was received in a solid way by a line mate, but goes into the bench and stops the play. This is really good body positioning. Again, he's doing the scooting thing, right? He's not just setting up in his area here, skating backwards, monitoring this guy, which, again, he's taking a bit of a risk here by scooting over to this side and applying pressure here. But this is the third time this game where he establishes body positioning really well and just blocks the flow of play, which for a defenseman is kind of a must from time to time. And he allows his line mate to pick up the puck and try to get the puck moving the other way, which they do. And that does not really happen nearly as easily without Sandin-Pellikka sort of scooting over and making that physical play there. A thing I'm liking about this performance of his is he's not overthinking things very often. In situations like this, this can be a bit tricky. I'm not the best hockey player in the world, but whenever I'm playing and there's a stick lying on the ground and the puck's along the boards, you don't want to skate into the stick, and there's just an opportunity for chaos here. But he doesn't overthink this at all. He doesn't even need time to really think about what play to make here. Just a quick pass to his support. He absorbs the pressure here along the boards. Keeping it simple, especially for an offensive defenseman, and knowing when to do so can really make the difference between a coach trusting you and not trusting you. And so for me in this game, especially at the professional level, seeing so much of this from Sandin-Pellikka, just keeping possession, keeping play simple. If he doesn't see more of that aggressive option, he just keeps it safe. And it has worked far more than it hasn't in this game. Again, being assertive and aggressive in the offensive zone. People say the best offense is a good defense, but sometimes with defensemen especially, the best defense is good offense. Getting involved in the offensive zone, clogging that option up and maintaining possession. They got a shot on goal out of it, but there was potential for more here. Maybe you get a face-off in the offensive zone. That's a plus, but that probably doesn't happen without Sandin-Pellikka sort of tying the guy up. And he just does it again, but without the support, really. So this one, I can't really fault him because he kind of has the right idea, right? He's blocking that offensive zone exit. He's being a little bit aggressive, but the problem is you'll count 4 Skellefteå players here, and so there's a Leksand player you'll see hanging out at the offensive blue line, gets the easy entry, and now you have what very likely could be a very threatening scoring chance, but you get bailed out a little bit there. But again, Sandin-Pellikka's there in support, doesn't overthink it at all, just moving the puck. You've got a guy on you there. Not super complicated. Guy doesn't receive the pass particularly well, but if you're gonna pinch up and it burns you, you got to back check, you got to get back, and if you do gain possession of the puck, get it to safety. Tried, it got out of the defensive end, and so I can't fault him too much there. He had the right idea. Sometimes things just don't go your way, but he patched it over. So again, he's not moving his feet really all that much past a certain point. There's just too much going on here. You've got a 3-on-2, so I get it. You can't overcommit. You don't want to be pushing too far to this side and giving this guy a pathway inside. He kind of gives him whatever he wants. He's not really a threat in this position. If you're a fast player, you can just cut this way on him, and I'm pretty sure you would be home free, and they get a puck in the middle. It's just another thing of the same issue that has popped up a few times this game, where being a little bit passive and not moving your feet and not being very active with your crossovers on defensive entries can leave you a step or two behind and give your opponent a ton of space. Here's something that's pretty solid for an offensive defenseman. You're going to need to be a guy who can command possession of the puck. Sandin-Pellikka is just going to wrap around this way and use the space that's created. And I don't know if this was a set play or not, but he's got the streaking forwards. He's got multiple options. Luckily for him, this guy dropped his stick, so he has a little bit more space to play with and a little less pressure. Makes the simple pass out of the defensive end, and they now have possession in the offensive zone. This is a guy who can produce points. This is just a great idea and play. It's a switch out. He gets the puck. He gets to go down low. He doesn't just put it on net from here. There's a lot of defensemen or even forwards, junior aged and such, who will just put it on net from wherever, but he goes deeper. He thinks a little bit more. It's just an excellent read of a passing lane here. Manages to get his team a scoring chance. This might be one of the better scoring chances that the team has had with him on the ice. This is also great too. He wraps around the back. No one is following him, right? So this guy kind of was covering him below the goal line. Now he's not really doing anything, just begging for a one-timer here. Maybe he wants the one-touch pass to send it across the crease, but there's potential for a scoring chance here that is extremely dangerous. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Sandin-Pellikka develops from here. This is a very similar player to what I remember when I was tracking him a few years ago, and why I had him a little bit lower than people had him, and why he got drafted a little bit later than the average ranking had him at the time. Obviously, there's a very smart player here. He's a guy who sees the ice well, understands how to keep defenses guessing. When he's playing with the puck, you see really good ideas, really good processing ability. He never made a bad pass in this game. When he pinched, he almost always had support. And there was lots to like about this player in this game. I think that there is a bit of an X factor with regards to what he'll be like in the NHL, right? Not the quickest guy in the world, not the most agile guy in the world. He's smaller than a lot of defensemen, so that natural lack of length can make the stick checking ability a little bit less impactful in the NHL. There were instances where I saw players with a lot of space to play with down the wing that he just wouldn't really be able to be much of an influence in. And that's going to need to be something that is worked on, or above all, I mean, I'm just curious about what he will look like in the NHL, assuming he gets there. He's a pass first guy, so he definitely moves the puck, I think, at a level high enough, or sees the ice well enough and doesn't take too much responsibility on himself. In terms of impact at both ends of the ice, he ties up sticks in front of the net just fine. He got physically outmatched a couple of times, though. His defensive zone entry defense is questionable at times, but not bad. He's not sitting back and doing nothing, but being a little bit more active, a little bit quicker, definitely would help. In the offensive zone, all the ingredients are there now. I think you saw enough in the offensive zone where you go, I see how he does generate points. Those quick cuts at the offensive blue line to create space, drawing pressure, pinching down low, getting below the goal line, finding open space in front of the net. He did all of that at various points in the game. So all in all, I mean, I found Sandin-Pellikka to be very interesting. I will be very curious to see how his long-term projection goes. Looking back on my list from 2023, I think I would be very comfortable with him around where I had him in this group of players. The middle of the first round, I think that we're looking at a potential power play unit quarterback defenseman here that can maybe be a second pair guy in Detroit one day. You know, maybe not a super elite offensive defenseman as he is now, but anything is possible long term. He's still quite young. I thought that was a good game out of Sandin-Pellikka, a really interesting one that showcased some of the strengths of his game and how he's producing, but also some of the issues that might be there and at the NHL level might get exacerbated a little bit, but only time will tell. And so overall, I can see why people are excited about him. I can see why he went so high in the first round, and we'll see how things go. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, definitely like the video. You can comment below if you want any specific players that you want to see, and we'll take a look at them for you. You can check out Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you plenty of other exclusive content you won't get anywhere else. So thank you very much. This was a lot of fun, and we'll see you in the next one.